everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We are really excited to have our friends from Levata with us today. Kurt Wolf, welcome back to the channel. We're happy to have you here.
Great to be back.
And we are happy to welcome Didi, also from Levata Human Performance. Didi, tell us a little bit about yourself.
We're going to go personal or professional. We can go.
You can do both. We can edit whatever.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Working for Levada, I've been here for I just hit my 5-year anniversary. So, they've put up with me for 5 years. That's pretty good. Get a little stream in there. But yeah, I live here in Houston. It's a very interesting city to be in. As you get to know me, you'll probably say, I'm not really sure why she lives there. Most of my colleagues are like that. I do love to travel. I drink a lot of wine and I have a lot to say about a lot of different things and I'm pretty passionate. So just depends on what topic you get me in.
Perfect. Passion is exactly what we like on the channel. So we're super glad to have you. And
Sure.
Kurt, welcome back. Anything new going on with you?
Well, it's great to be back, Jason. What's going on with me is actually related to what we spoke about at one of our last discussions, which is the empty nesting process is kicked into high gear. Literally last night, we clicked send on the order for a bunch of grad cards for our daughter, our youngest, as she graduates in May. And then also within the last week, my son's been officially accepted into a study abroad program in Australia. So not only will we be empty nesters next fall, but one of our kids will be across the world. So things are getting real. And it's all exciting, but it's a lot.
That's cool. We'll put some fireworks or some confetti or something on the screen when you're talking about getting accepted to study abroad in Australia. Australia is great. I visited there years ago. It's a fantastic place. People are lovely there.
It's on my list.
It is. When you talk about change, cultural change happens because even though you may read all sorts of things about travel, and especially since you travel, Didi, you know what it's like when you go certain places and things that you're used to doing aren't accepted there. When I worked for MGM Resorts, I went to China to do some work there, and they put me with an ambassador, which was great to teach me some of the etiquette so that I wouldn't make any big slip-ups while I was there. Some habits I still do to this day. I still accept a business card with 2 hands, and there's just cultural pieces I picked up permanently after learning them. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah. What's your favorite place to go, Didi?
Thailand or Spain. Two very different, very, very different countries, but both feed very different pieces of my soul.
Oh, that's great. Someday I'll make it a little further south in Hainan province of China.
Yeah, Thailand's definitely on my short list. I mean, I think if all this study abroad stuff holds, I'll be going to Australia this year, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, my wife and I recently created this list of like where we want to go in the U.S. and where we want to go globally, and Thailand's definitely near the top of the global list.
That's great. Do they have a built-in like parents come visit day or week? Well, it should be a week if you have to fly 16 hours. So there should be
I think what we'll do is we'll probably, which by the way, I think travel would be a great topic as change.
Just thinking about cultural and change and like things of that nature. I mean, like, hell, we could just dive right into that if we wanted to.
Yep, we'll write that down. We keep adding topics as each session brings us new stuff, which is great.
Yeah, one of the things that always surprises me is when you travel to English-speaking countries, we all kind of make we have a mental model that, it's just, it's an accent, but it's the same as the U.S. Where we go, if we go to a country that speaks a different language, we actually are a little bit more open to the fact that things are different. I think most people operate that way. And I know that, so it'll be interesting for me because I've never been to Australia to see like how really they interact and what that culture looks like. But to answer your question, I think what we'll do is we'll probably fly to Sydney. He'll be studying in Sydney about a week before he's done with school so that we can meet his friends and, see his favorite parts of the city. And, we'll go do our own stuff too. And then when he's done, we'll go somewhere cool or a couple places cool in the country.
And when he says get there a week early, his son will have planned all the places he wants him and his friends to take him out, so dad can pay for these things, right? Like that's
yes, I'm sure
that's really what this is about, right? Like, when he says meet his friends, we're still meet his friends and pay for the fun.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks, Dad, for coming. Yeah. Where's your wallet? Yeah. That's this kind of our topic of today is going to be about moving, but I mean, this is a big thing about getting ready to move overseas. I mean, do they have a process? I mean, is it basically take what you can fly with you, or do they have something you can ship? Or
I think when I studied abroad, it was whatever you can check is check luggage, and I think that's what'll be the case for Liam too. And He can buy whatever he needs down there too. Like I don't think he needs a lot of stuff. He just did a trip to San Diego for like 4 days and literally had a tiny backpack, so he didn't have to check luggage on Frontier. So he'll be fine. So Jason, if we kick off with moving, like when you first brought up this topic, that was the first thing that came to mind for me because I just moved a little over a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, and I handled it badly, and like I didn't really do a good job of change management with myself or my family. And so it was a lot more painful than it needed to be. And the kind of the learning is, the stuff I do professionally actually works personally too. And I should have thought about that stuff before the move instead of just assuming it'll be fine. I've moved before, where actually it wasn't fine. It was actually very, very hard, and I didn't respond well.
What was probably the big learning lessons when you talk about we do this as a profession? Because we do. We live change, eat change, breathe change, sleep change. Yeah, every day. You would think it would be automatic for us, but I think sometimes emotional intelligence, we spend a lot of time developing ourselves and helping everybody else through the change. Sometimes it just falls on a day or a week where we are maybe diminished ever so slightly, and all of a sudden we're like, I know better than this. What happened?
Yeah, and I think, on top of that, I think one of the things we learn from lots of project-based work is that optimistic project planning never plays out well, right? And I think I had some optimistic project planning with our move. And then as the inevitable hard stuff came, I just wasn't ready for it. I honestly just reacted poorly because I was just overwhelmed. And I think if I had done a better job of laying out a giant work plan, here's all the things we're going to do, and really do a good job of aligning with why we're moving, it all would have gone better. Like all the stuff, I should have used it with the move, but I didn't.
I'm
Did
curious.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Didi. Yeah.
I was going to say, I was curious. And this is knowing you, Kurt, but also just knowing other people. Sometimes even doing those sorts of things, like we have to know ourselves to be able to accept the change, right? And to me, building out some sort of plan like that, would that have overwhelmed you? And then two, when things didn't go according to that plan, how would that reaction, would it have been poorly again in that way as well, right? Because we can, just because we build a plan and then the plan doesn't go according to plan, we get upset about that plan, and that feels like a negative reaction in itself. I'm asking a hypothetical question here.
Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, I think we should have had a more detailed plan with some estimates. Okay. And then the other thing, I just wasn't prepared for, which again, we know in the change management business, is the whole emotional connection to place. Mm-hmm. I should have, I wasn't prepared for how emotional of a journey it was as well, because we do get attached to where we live, our neighbors, our friends. And so when you uproot all that, it's different. And I just completely underestimated.
Such an interesting thing hearing you talk, Kurt, because I have a very different perspective on moving. Yeah. And part of it is because I don't, I'm a single woman, don't have kids, but I grew up. So why I kind of relate to moving a lot, probably for everybody's references, that my dad was in the oil business. And so we moved around. I went to 9 different schools, maybe 8 to 9 different schools growing up. And so moving was just very much part of who I was. In fact, there's a family joke that goes in my house. I think I was in high school, a junior year of high school. We'd been in this place for 2.5 years. And my sister and I came downstairs and we're like, we need to have a family meeting. And the family meeting was, we hadn't heard rumors of moving. And so we're like, when are we moving? What's going to happen? So I've grown up in this place of it's the opposite for me. When we think about perspective and we think about change, and that's, I think what I'm getting at is when we think about change isn't one-sided in how we think about what's happening. Everybody has different perspectives. And mine is very different in that I'm very compartmentalized. I don't have the emotional attachments. I don't have those things. I'm very structured in what it does. And it's because I've done it so many times. And I said you haven't done it many times too, but I don't have that emotional connection. And that's just a different perspective. And when we think about change, change comes from different perspectives, even though it's the same people experiencing the same type of change, the perspective is different. That was a very long-winded way.
Yeah. I really like that distinction, Didi, because I think people's backgrounds, military folks, I think, have the same type of thing where there's a frequent move. And so the emotional attachment to the neighborhood, the people might be less than those. Kurt, how long were you at your residence before you moved?
No, so first, to briefly respond to Dee Dee, like I totally get it. Like because of her, she's moved her whole life and has because of that figured out a way to make it easier, smoother, less painful, and she's not as attached and is able to move ahead. Where I didn't move as a kid really at all. Like I moved twice from like kindergarten through college. But then at age from 18 to 30, I moved. I was in a new place every single year. But since 30, I've literally only been in three houses. And my last house, I was there for like almost 15 years and more or less raised my kids there. Like their entire childhood was there.
And that's
And
the
so now you
point,
can see
right?
how
Like it's
like
such a
things weight
different,
in emotion, right?
yeah,
Like I remember them learning to drive a bike, and I walked them to school. Like all of the big things happen in that house. So
yeah.
that's actually a great compare and contrast between Dee Dee and I, and that really highlights why this one was so hard. I assumed it'd be fine.
Do you think in today's world, so the comparing and contrasting of those two different experiences, do you think sometimes when people are trying to get other people to change, they expect them to have their same level of understanding? Well, I moved all the time, so I think, well, I don't understand why you're hung up on moving. And the other person's like, I don't want to move. I've been here, I have all these attachments. Do you think people
Yeah,
put their own belief system on change and then don't get why others don't get along with it?
totally.
I think
I mean,
also we
go
get
ahead, Dee
shocked.
Dee.
I was gonna say that I think yes, and I think the other piece is I can sit here. I always think about, or I try to think about too, what if I did have a family? What if I did have a kids? I haven't experienced what Kurt has experienced, or maybe you have experienced, Jason. So, like, I can sit here and say these things, but my experience may change again if I were to ever have family or have kids or have these kinds of things. So, like, it's not just me pushing, it's not just to what you're saying, pushing what you think, but like there's always the shock of I did this whole time, like kind of back to what you're saying, Kurt, like I've done this, but then all of a sudden it shifted. Something changed, right? Because of new experiences and new things. And like that self-reflection is so important too.
Yeah, I think that's a great insight, Jason. I totally agree with Dee Dee. Like one of the things, so I'm really involved with the joint task force between the International Coaching Federation and the Association of Change Management Professionals. Because really, coaching and change are working on the same thing, but from different vantage points. And one of the things that we extract from that for our work and change is this whole idea of shift in perspective. So I think good change professionals can shift their perspective to think through what it's like for the people going through this and put themselves. And I think we do a better job of that professionally than we often do personally. Like at work, I'm better at like, well, where's this person coming from? Like, okay, that makes sense. And but when it's me, I'm not as detached. And that's something I personally need to work on. The other thing, back to your point, Jason, just thinking through like learned experience, lived experience, is that I've always thought that empathy is like the killer app of change management. And when we have empathy for those going through change, we can much better serve them and help.
Absolutely. I know Levata is known for, and part of the reasons why I've worked with you and your team and your folks so much is because it's always been a people first focus. And so empathy is clearly something that's needed. Do you think that sometimes we get so hung up on the mechanics? So, you talked about a plan, you talked about all the things that have to happen, like a checklist, the utility transfers, the moving people, all those things. Do we sometimes get so hung up in the tactical piece that we forget to have a little empathy and just check in with people and see, how are you doing? You okay? You need anything? I know it's a lot. Do we ever get so just we're checking boxes, moving things, the stuff's happening, which is what you want to do when you're moving. Maybe it's okay to just tap somebody on the shoulder and say,
Well, I
need
think
anything?
it's a great question, Jason. I'd say just speaking for myself candidly, like I do a better job of that professionally than I do personally.
Mm.
And I probably not only need to be a little bit more empathetic personally to others, but I also need a little bit more empathy for me and give myself some grace, like allow me to grieve when I have to let go of this place where I raised my kids. So that's a great point.
Or do you even, I would ask the question a little bit deeper, Kurt. Do you recognize when someone is trying to be empathetic with you, but you are in a place of like, I'm not ready to process that yet? Does that make sense what I'm asking? So like someone is checking in, but you're not ready to process, and so you say, no, I'm fine. I got it. Right. Instead of maybe really taking the time to stop and take the 3 minute conversation. Like, because I think that's our knee jerk response. And every time someone says, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. I got it. Or I'm okay. Or it's really busy or whatever, but life's life. Like, but we don't actually stop and take the 5 minutes because if someone's offering to ask you, they're willing to go down that path with you. I would assume.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, I think one of the big things, one of the great gifts we can give others is just open experience sharing, like just being open, telling the truth. One of the things I like about, I'm a member of this thing called the Entrepreneurs Organization, and they create this very confidential, special place where people can share like the very top 5% of things going on in their lives and also the very bottom 5%. Like, because there are great things that you would love to talk about, but you feel like you're bragging. It feels arrogant to share. And then there's those things that you're like ashamed about and don't feel good about, make you feel bad. And the problem is most people don't have a place to share those things. And I like this organization for that venue it provides to do that. But I would also argue, like in our own lives, when we can create the space for people to really, really share the really great stuff and the really bad stuff, we're giving them a great gift.
Yeah, I know one of the purposes of this channel is to talk about the things that maybe aren't as popular about change. And we always talk about software changes or process changes, tech changes. Those kinds of things are happening all the time. Those happen a lot in business, but we don't really talk a lot about the personal. And so the topics we've been hitting have been things such as what it's like when we moved and how well that went, or in some cases, we appreciate your candor, it didn't go as well as I had hoped, or some of the things that just come up day to day, like my kids are leaving, I don't know how to feel. All health things happen, and I don't know how to feel. Dee Dee and I were talking about at the beginning, a new adventure with the foot now that we get to deal with something fun that we get to put an orthotic in my shoe. So there's always some new change adventure happening, but I think we sometimes just need to remember that I think I really like the empathy and the grace, because we have to give it with ourselves. And we have to give it with others too, because there's so much happening that I don't know how people process it some days. I really don't. There's just so much.
I think that's the cool thing though too. Not the cool about like so much change, but there's so much change and there's so much to lean into. Like because and I keep saying perspective because I think perspective is so important and like where that comes from. But you and I can experience the same thing, Jason, and yet it's going to come from two different angles of how I feel about this. Or like I think like we can have grown up in the same neighborhood, have grown up in the same like kind of families working the same things, and yet your family dynamics are going to be very different than my family dynamics, which then experiences how I experience things very differently. We just did a study here at Levata around our own engagement survey, as you would call it, like around belonging, and we did a very simple question, which was talking about like, do you take care of pets? Do you have kids? Do you have taking care of elderly family, parents, all that kind of thing? And we're a very small organization, and we had 10 different combinations of people based on one question. And I thought that was so fascinating to me because it really showed how different when we think about empathy, when we think about all those things, living in someone else's shoes and being those things, it's different. There's I would say even in our college, we've got colleagues, what Kurt, like about 4 or 5 of you that have all kind of in the same path of like about to be into empty nesters, kids graduating, all of this, and yet you're all experiencing it, I would say, very differently, but it's still the common thread that you kind of get to all talk about.
Yeah, and underneath what you both said is like this kind of understanding about the whole practice of just giving grace to people is an important one, because we don't know actually what they're going through. We don't know if they're dealing with health challenges or dealing with the health challenges of a parent. We don't know if they're facing financial difficulties. We don't know if they're struggling professionally or personally. Like we often judge people by their behavior when their behavior often has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with the journey they're going.
Very hard to remember that in the moment.
There's a short, it's probably going to come up close to this session that I recorded, because I happened to be talking to somebody at work the other day, and they were comparing themselves to somebody else, how well they were managing change. They said, gosh, I wish I was as good as person X about managing change. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, we've got this going on and this going on, and the kids are doing this and the parents are doing this, all this kind of stuff. And they just seem to be rolling with the change. And I'm struggling with my iOS update on my iPhone, and my apps now taking my password out, and just some other things. And I said, but you can't compare, the worlds aren't the same. And we've talked a little bit about this already in this video, that everybody's experience is unique. And so whether it be moving or some of the other topics that we've covered or will cover, we have to remember that everybody is completely different in how they get there. And so this community is great because we can all share. And I love that there are other communities out there where other people can share, because you shouldn't have to go at it alone. And maybe someone's experience can enhance or uplift you while you're working through it. But I really cautioned them about comparing them to somebody else, because they could be like that duck that looks calm on top of the water and is paddling furiously underneath. We don't know what it's like when they're not around. They could be at home at night having moments of reflection where they think, holy moly, what is going on? And other things. So I think that, when we talk about empathy, grace, these other things too, we really do have to be mindful that journeys are never the same, and don't get wasting a lot of energy on trying to either make yours fit the same journey as somebody else's, or worrying about why you're not doing it the same way.
So much easier said than done. Preach, but so much easier said than done.
Indeed. Yeah. I think it's natural, especially we are social, most people are social creatures. And so they want to share their experiences and hear other people's experiences. And nobody ever wants to say that I can't do it as well as somebody else, or gosh, I wish I was as good as, or fill in the blank. And yeah, it is much tougher. Change journeys are, I mean, we did a giant customer information system SAP thing that was 2+ years, $150 million. And you want to talk about 1,500 employees plus a project team of 120 going through change. And it was 1,500 employees plus 120 project people, change journeys too. They
Yeah.
were all
Yes.
different.
That's the key. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then in the end, right, change management's moving one person at a time.
Mhm.
Bottom bomb. Way to put some moving in there, Kurt.
Yep. Hearts and minds. It's all about hearts and minds, getting them ready to go.